Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to have a conversation around just figuring out, okay, what is that career path that guide you through the job market? Just to preface that we will have a discussion around it. Basically, just thinking about it, just looking at what are some of the things that we should be observing in this job market, in this job climate. How are we navigating the job market? How do we feel about the job market? Are there any insights, there are needs to land this next job? So So I would begin by understanding the skills that you're going to need. Like know yourself, doing a self-assessment, just trying to identify your strengths and weaknesses, trying to see what are your career goals. Use this assessment to just get a good sense of what are your career goals, how do you think about your values, what are your strengths and weaknesses, how do you determine the work environment that you want? I find that self assessments are the great way to really understand who you are, what are your goals, where do you want to go, what are your job search, what are your long term strategy, what are your short term strategies. I think that's a great way to do it. And there's a lot of self assessments out there, but typically you can probably just go to a website. You can even go to my website, workschool.co, and there's an assessment form that you can fill out, or you can just do it yourself by just creating some questions like, what are my goals? How do I see myself achieving these goals? Where do I go from here? So these are just things that define your short term, long term goals, your career aspirations as you go. I think that's where you want to start, really doing a self assessment just to, you know, get a sense of who you are, where do you go in this job climate. Um, is working for a tech company the right thing for me? Just really get a sense of assessing who you are, where do you want to go, what are your values, how does career path that you've chosen basically align with your values, and then set certain goals like what are my career goals, short term, long term, medium term. Just have that guide you. How do you do that? So there's some steps, like I said, right? There are different types of personality tests that you can take online. Myers-Briggs, DISC. There are different assessment tests that you can take. These are, long personality traits tests, but there are some simple tests, like I said earlier, that you can just create for yourself and ask yourself, like, um, where do I see myself in 5 years? What are some of the things that I want? If I get this job, what will it contribute? How would I feel? How would I think about it? So these can assess certain things, right? They explore it, right? So you take one of these personality tests online, or you can take a simple test where you're just looking at what are your strengths and weaknesses? What are some positive qualities that you have basically around certain things, and then just list those things. Identify areas of improvement. So when we think about strengths and weaknesses, sometimes I know we want to focus on our strengths, and those are great. I think you should like look at your strengths, focus on your strengths, and see where those things can take you. But also just like identify some weaknesses and see, okay, can I improve any of these things, basically, without ignoring your strengths? Because again, knowing where your strengths are and what you can do, basically now, but long term, just see how you can add skills, stack skills to really improve your weaknesses, because that's where it is, right? Looking at how you onboard skills at each level of your long term career goals versus your short term career goals. Think of the journey. On that journey, you're adding skills. Can you get a coach? Can you find a career coach to speak to? Basically, just to help you. We do set a career coaching for certain people. Like for example, depending on where you are, your career journey, if you're a recent grad or you are pivoting a career or you're mid-level professionals, we would do career coaching around those things. And we use certain different models. Basically, I didn't come up with any of these models just to make it clear, but we use certain models. Like there's one, a growth model that thinks about basically look at certain things like your goals, what you're thinking about, basically, what where you are now, the reality of where you are now, basically what type of obstacles that you're looking at, basically, and where do you see yourself? How will you move forward? These are the things that we basically try to work around and just look at, right? So think about how do you see these things in terms of a lot of so time management. Just make that assessment, and again, really dive down in your strengths and weaknesses with the people you're working with or people you want to work with, right? What type of patterns are you noticing? What type of patterns are you seeing? All right. I said step two is just really thinking about constructive feedback. Like, just if you can talk to a career coach, basically executive coach, a friend, just talk about, okay, here I'm looking for some feedback on these things. What do you see that I am not seeing? So you can identify certain things that might be repetitive. So you might see there's a probably a trend in what you're doing, the type of jobs you're getting, and you're not aligned in, basically. And don't be afraid to like think about these things and discuss them openly with probably a career coach, as I said earlier, right? Gain new insights. So consider certain alternative perspective around, okay, this is not working for me. Here's where I want to go. So look at it from a professional growth, personality growth, professional growth, personal growth, and carefully listen to those things, right? In that discussion, talk about those things. You can coach yourself if you want. You can ask yourself certain question, right? How do I see myself moving forward? What are some of the things that I'm doing? Basically, so you're just like coaching yourself as you go. Uh, and again, feel free to reach out to us on workschool.co just to talk about some of the things. We're happy to sit down and do that for you. Basically, show appreciation. Like, once you complete this process, basically, whether it's with a friend, a family member, a career coach, always just show gratitude around who you are, what you have become, how you have grown, basically. So just think about that. So what type of self improvements you're making, and think of it as a continuous self improvement. It's not, oh, so I improved today and that's it. No, it's a continuous self improvement along this journey, because we're never stuck in one place and we're never perfect, right? We're constantly trying to improve. The case is not to be perfect. The case is not to say, oh, I solved this problem right now. Where long term growth comes from is the continuous 1% improvement, stacking skills day in, day out. That's where it comes from. So be aware of those things and be willing to like show appreciation for those things and gratitude for those things, and demonstrate the commitment to keep doing these things over and over and over daily, so you can see that improvement. Right. So find a way to look at what are the findings that you're seeing, and basically work with these, like go through it, look at the findings and see what are you seeing. Are you seeing any overlap from the assessment to basically to the working with a career coach? Are you seeing any basically overlap, similarities that you can find a way to break down and say, okay, fine, I need to figure out how to not do this, um, because it's these patterns that you're identifying might just be something that you're asking yourself. It could be a limiting belief on your point of view, where you're saying, oh, I can't get to that point, basically, and you have to figure, okay, how do I get over this limiting belief? What are some of the constructs that I can use to get over this limiting belief, right? And then create an action plan for, okay, what are the actions I'm going to take? And these actions can be just very, very small action, right? Don't try to solve the entire thing overnight. It could just be as simple as, okay, every day I'm going to do A, and that's it. Just like, so create an action plan of how you're going to get from, and it could just be, okay, I'm going to take my short-term goals, which are usually goals less than 1 year, and I'm going to create actions for that, right? And then you can have an action plan also for your medium term and your long term goals. So that will give you some really good coordination into how this is going to work. Um, and as you go through this process, right now you have identified. Now you want to think about, how do I create a resume and a cover letter, right? That's typically usually the case in terms of how do I create a resume and a cover letter. Basically, that will make this like first impression, right? So remember, these are the things that makes the first impression, right? These are things that your resume is created with your cover letter to get you the interview. It makes the first impression. So we want to make sure that we think about this. You have now done this wonderful assessment of where you want to be, who you want to be. Now you're creating this thing called resume. We can identify some things and best practices around how do we create these things. So there are lots of tools out there you can use primarily to create these resume. Work School as a platform that you can use to create the resume and cover letter. But there's so many tools out there that you can use as well. So typically, when you're thinking about your building this strong resume, you want to identify am I going to tailor this resume? I personally believe that you should tailor your resume for every single uh, job that you're applying for. So the best way to do this is to have a master resume, like a main resume, basically that you probably keep somewhere basically. So it could be if you're using Google Docs or you're using Microsoft Words. So you have the main resume there, and then each time you see a resume based on um, the the what they're asking you for basically versus your qualifications. So you see a job, and I always say that it's okay to apply for a job that you're not qualified for. That's perfectly okay. So don't overthink it, basically, because you'll gain experience, and sometimes it's okay to like push past this limiting belief. So typically, what you can ask yourself is basically, so you're looking at job description, and then you can probably just tailor your resume from that master resume to basically, okay, here are some things they're asking for in this job description and specification, and put it into your resume, basically. And typically try to keep the resume format within line, depending on where your career path are. So if you're, recent grad, you might, use something like a functional resume. But if you're more in that mid to higher level career path where you could probably mix, but again, try to keep it between 1 to 2 pages, depending where you are. But that works really well for you in terms of getting your application read and people looking at your application in terms of, okay, most people don't want to look at 5 or 6 pages. We usually reserve that for like a CV, which is more on the academic side, or probably at the executive level. So, and typically you're using what I consider action verbs, right? So you're typically using action verbs in terms of, okay, what are some of the things that I'm looking at basically? So try to use words like manage, develop, achieve. So these words show basically in the beginning of like you're using bullet points, and in the beginning of that bullet points, you're using these words basically to show ideally what you have done in their action verbs. So always basically do that. So again, wherever it's possible, try to include numbers to showcase impact, right? We increase sales by 20%, right? So a good format to use is wherever it's possible, just try to quantify your results in a way that it makes a big impact from the reader's point of view. It makes a big impact. So to continue that line, I personally believe we should all start with like a professional summary, like just craft 1, 2 lines basically of a compelling summary that showcase who you are and your unique value proposition. So basically just like who you are, here we go, and how can I add value to what you're doing? Again, we can go further beyond this in terms of just like using certain resources that we'll probably talk about a little bit later. Obviously, you want to learn the keywords because keywords help you get past this whole application tracking system that is out there that people use to decide whether or not they're going to look at this resume. So try to use the keywords, and you can pull keywords from the job description, job specification. You can pull keywords from those, right? Keep the resume clean, keep it simple. Basically, don't, I would probably just say, keep the formatting pretty simple and consistent. That would be my word. Again, obviously, check for grammar. Basically, try to avoid the grammatical errors. Um, A quick pro tip, by the way, I would say use the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. What is this? This is a framework for basically trying to answer, basically give enough information about what you're doing on your resume. So, for example, it's a structure that you use to answer behavioral question. So if you want to pinpoint some behavioral thing that happened, you can say, okay, here's a situation that happened. Here are the tasks that was involved in it. This is the action I took to solve this, basically. And the situation could be a problem. And then this is the result. And the result goes back to saying, hey, um, let's use some number where possible, right? Quantify the impact where it's possible, right? So that's what they're referring to when they say the results. You could basically just use, how do I quantify my achievement, quantify the result. This could be a way you could actually do that. Cover letter is pretty much, you personalize it, highlight the achievements, call to action, right? This is where you you're pretty much, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say it's a summary of your resume, but it's pulling out some of the stuff from your resume, you're putting it back in. But this is where you're really diving deep in their value proposition and the call to action when you finish, right? Really let them know, okay, I'm interested in this. I really want this job. I'm requesting this interview, basically, because again, remember your cover letter and your resume is really to get you this interview, because that's where the goal for your resume and cover letter, get you this interview. So basically, you start, making sure that you're starting with a powerful, begin, and then close with a call to action. You can reach me at, please feel free to contact me at this, contact me at this. This is my contact number, something like that, regarding the, call to action to close. We are using LinkedIn a lot more today. So I would really encourage you to have a compelling LinkedIn profile, because that is where you can use your LinkedIn profile to, one, to network. Basically, I would pretty much say you should use a network. So to make it easier for you. So if you're creating this resume and there's a particular job that you want, you've identified this job, well, go to LinkedIn, search LinkedIn, look for the company, find someone who that works there, and try to do, well, basically try to just reach out to them, see if they are available to take 5 minutes of their time and talk to you. And in some cases, you can do what we call an informational interview, basically. So it's really a networking session, but it's an informational interview where you find someone from the organization and see if they have time they can talk to you. Send them a message on LinkedIn and say, I'm actually thinking about, I'm applying for this job. Would you be, have some time? You can talk to me about, basically. And that's a way you can learn about the company, talk to them about the division, probably even department you're going to work in, make it that, right? So again, really structure your LinkedIn profile in a way that it makes sense. Put up your experiences and skill there. I would even go as far as saying upload your resume, basically, on LinkedIn. So really drive that home, because again, there's no limitation. Basically, what you can do in terms of adding skills, make it compelling, put it there. So again, just follow some of the tips right here. I Professional picture, keep it that way consistently, uh, and you should be okay. But definitely, everyone wants to. Basically, I my personal viewpoint is everyone should have everyone should have a compelling LinkedIn profile. And by the way, put your LinkedIn profile on your resume, like somewhere on your resume, your LinkedIn, basically, so that somebody can hyperlink. They can click from your resume to your LinkedIn, make it as seamless as possible for them to just look at your LinkedIn profile. So that would be a great thing to do. And just to move off of LinkedIn, learn to network. Basically, we can network in person. We can network, basically online, digital. So you want to be able to do. Depends. It doesn't matter. You're doing online, networking. You're doing in person networking, in real life networking. So you're doing all the above when it comes down to looking for a job, right? You're basically leveraging social media. And in this case, you can even go out a bit from LinkedIn. You can use other places, but just again, just be mindful that you keep a professional appearance on those other sites that you're going, basically. But I would say attend industry events, webinars, wherever you can go, basically. Just so now you're extending your network and become a really advocate. Again, not the networking session where you go and you give people your business card and you just no, try to be more proactive, basically, in terms of talking to them. Create like an elevator pitch. Elevator pitch is basically a pretty short, I would say no more than 30 seconds in a case like that, basically. So 60 seconds, a minute max, where you're just like breaking it down, who you are, what is it that you're looking to do, and how can you add value, basically, at that point in time. And you can have that conversation. It can be as simple as that, right? So just think about that as you go right there. Or just like identify certain skills that you want to mention in this way, who you are. Here's some skills that you have, or something of the sort. But to be effective in having this, basically what we call an elevator pitch, ready to go um, at any time. And in most cases, I would say, again, just ignore the business card. But again, so think of the modern way of just doing things, right? Have a LinkedIn QR code ready. And every time somebody says, "Oh, do you have your LinkedIn profile?" Sure. And you can just have your LinkedIn QR code, right? So again, and last but not least, please follow up with your new contact, like build a lasting professional, like follow up. Make sure that you are, don't just like send them a LinkedIn profile. Like if you can, and I know sometimes it's hard, or sometimes on LinkedIn, just follow up professional with probably like, it's a pleasure to meet you. Bang. Don't make it too long because I missed on LinkedIn. So just keep it short. It was great to meet you at the event. Look forward to talking to you. And that should be sufficient, basically. So again, bring the network in where you're finding a way to just talk to people, alumni, colleagues, reaching out to them on different sources, different platforms, events, and you are exposing yourself to these people, showing how you can add value to what they're doing in, like I said, a 30-minute, no more than sorry, 30 seconds. Apologize for that. 30 seconds, no more than 60 seconds in just identifying this. Um, what I would say right there and then is a great way to just give them a good intro of you, make it powerful and impactful in that short space of time, right? So again, that's what I would do in terms of my elevator pitch. So when we're looking at this thing and going through this, the job search again, just use whatever means possible. I know some are boring, in today's world. There's a lot of online job boards, basically at LinkedIn, Indeed. There's so many. I was just like use those first. Basically, the company website, their recruiters. The cold email is always the hardest. But if you have to do it well. Basically, in terms of craft again uh, an email that just highlights certain things, not just this rambling email. Just highlight your strengths, highlight your skills, highlight what you want to do, how can you add value, make it right. So just think about it that way. And again, just make sure you're following up, setting job alerts to notification for new jobs. If you go to a company website or on LinkedIn and you see something, just do like make it simple for you so that you're looking at that process and following those steps as you go along. As we're thinking about that, so we move. So let's say all goes well with this resume and cover letter, and you get this interview. You want to think through this interview process before you go in. So do your research of the company, right? Understand its vision, its culture. What are some recent developments that you see going on? So do some research, right? Uh, Practice, like take time to like create some practice. I've done this with a lot of my friends, a lot of clients, where we're practicing these common interview questions, and even some cases things that we just like, okay, let's think outside the box with some potential interview questions and just like go through those and see your practice. Again, you don't want to like have a rigid approach to this thing, like, oh, this is no, you just want to be flexible in terms of learning different ways you can answer the questions, right? And for your own development, I would say prepare questions that you want to ask. 'Cause remember, a lot of times, sometimes we feel that the process is a one way where they just want to know about you, want to know about these people as well. You want to know if this role is right for you. Is this company right for, are these people you want to work with? Basically. So again, just make sure that you prepared some questions that you want to ask. I would say stay away from questions if you feel like, you know, don't ask about how much pay do I get or how much vacation I get. It's not, I know it's relevant, but you will get paid. Basically, they understand that you're very listed what you want. Really dive deeper in from what you learn from research and ask questions around those. For example, I saw that on Wall Street, the company was launching a new this ABC or something. How does that how does that impact the department I'm working on? Things like that, right? So just keep the question very thoughtful and basically think about it. And then once you've done that, you can go through a process where you're negotiating and close it, basically, right? So again, just think of it that you are the one trying to close this thing, not the other way around all the time. You basically, and vice versa. So you need to make sure you're asking questions. Think of it like, okay, this is a deal I'm closing, right? Know what you're worth. Like, just really know, okay, they give you a salary range and you feel like it's not within your salary range, try to negotiate, try to find a way to negotiate by doing research again. Go on all the other sites that you look at and see what is basically the stated salary for the particular job that you're given, that you're looking at, basically, and just like think about, okay, what is this? And if it's too far away from that, then you can say, okay, I probably need to negotiate this. Think about the package that you're getting, whether there's stock options or any other thing inside it, health insurance, education or reimbursement, all these things. Just think about it. Again, it all depends on where you are in this journey, basically, and be a professional in your negotiation, right? Don't be fighting for a dollar. It doesn't make any sense, right? Why are you fighting for a dollar? It doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay, figure out the win-win. If it makes sense, if it can be compensation can come back in the form of basically education or reimbursement, well, that makes sense. You can continue growing. So it's great, basically. So as you think about this process, right? Depending on where you're in the journey, remember this is a a continuous thing, right? So you don't just stop. You get this job and you're there. Most people today are staying at their job for like a year, 2 years max, right? So let's say, okay, fine. So the younger you are, probably 3 years, but 7 years max. Then okay, fine. Uh, so you think about that, right? So you're always learning. You enter this job, figure out, oh, you can learn as much as you can. Try to get certifications, take online courses so you can stay competitive, stay up to date on industry news and trends, what's going on, remain, basically just try to remain pretty informed about what's going on, basically, in the field. So stay pretty informed about what's going on in the field. And again, just be resilient. Things are going to happen. There are going to be some failure, some disappointment. So be resilient. If you continue learning, if you continue growing, you'll be really fine. Basically, and again, like I said, just remember, just be persistent, stay positive, basically, and you'll see a lot of these things happen. So yeah, this was great, and thank you so much for just like thinking through some of these things. But the way I would say to continue doing this is just keep improving on your skills. Just keep improving. There's so many resources out there, from YouTube to Coursera to Udemy. Just keep building skills. Keep thinking about how do you onboard new skills. Um, do a skill inventory every now and again. Like, think of, oh, did I do well on this? How do I learn this? Basically, and again, you can use the tools that are out there. Like I said, there's so many tools out there that you can actually use now. Online tools from Myers-Briggs to this, you can actually use these do a value assessment, continue doing that just to see what's going on, what the role, what are the core values, are they making sense? Basically, try to find a way to, continue learning about industry, connect with professional in the industry continuously, right? Find a way to speak with a career coach, like I mentioned, right? A mentor to get deeper understanding of what's going on and insights and build your strengths and translate that into your career goals, basically. So, thank you so much. And if you really found this pretty interesting and informative and helpful, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. The more you do that for me, the better able I can bring content to you, and YouTube will push the content to you as well. Uh, I will always be posting new things, so look out for new information that are relevant to you and suitable to you. Basically, so I try my best to bring you the information that are relevant and suitable. So thank you so much again. And if you like it too as well, just share it with your community. That would be awesome. But again, if you haven't yet, just click the subscribe button. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye.